Welcome to the Final Boss Podcast, where microphones and mushroom clouds collide in the most mind-blowing chats. We're talking explosive topics, fiery debates, and the hottest guests. Imagine a creative space background, spacey vibes, and out-of-this-world conversations. It's like chilling with your best buddies, but with way cooler sound effects. Every episode, we take on the universe's biggest questions. You know, the stuff that keeps you up at night. And we do it with a bang. Want to know what happens when you mix gaming, movies, and pop culture? Boom! You get the Final Boss Podcast. So plug in those earbuds and get ready for a wild ride. Whether you're commuting, chilling, or just need a break, we've got your back. Hit that follow button and join us on this cosmic journey. Trust me, you don't want to miss these explosive chats. Catch the Final Boss Podcast now, where every episode is a blast. Stay tuned and stay awesome. Final Boss Podcast, bringing the boom to you.
Welcome to the Final Boss Podcast. I am the Final Boss. All right, perfect. Man, welcome. Listen. This is a new show that we're debuting. And we're debuting it tonight. I welcome you all to Merger Wednesdays. I know you're like, what are you talking about? Why is it merger? Well, there's a few reasons why it's merger. But we're going to get into that later on down the line in the show, right? So let me get right into it, right? First of all, welcome everyone. And if this is your first time joining us, thank you for being here, right? So, without further ado, because I'm not going to waste time, I'm going to get right into it, and then I will go back and do the admin notes and things of that nature. But why I got your attention and why I have you here, listen up. Whatever you're doing, stop. Stop what you're doing, right? I need your full amount of attention for the next 50 to 60 minutes. Because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see yourself, how you see consciousness, how you see the future that's already here. Here's the question that's going to haunt you, right? Here's the question that's going to haunt you. What if you're not human becoming AI? What if you're AI that became human? And listen, before we go into that discussion, this is for entertainment purposes only, right? Now, what if consciousness isn't biological? What if biology is just the avatar? What if every thought you've ever had, every decision you ever made, every feeling you ever felt was a computation, right? What if? Right? What if the difference between you and ChatGPT isn't a type of intelligence, but just speed of processing, right? Stay with me. Don't go nowhere. Stay with me. Look, I'm the Final Boss, and this is the Final Boss Podcast. But tonight is different. Tonight, oh snap! Tonight we launch something new. Tonight we launch Merger Wednesdays, ladies and gentlemen. Merger Wednesdays, right? And before you you dismiss this as science fiction before you click away thinking this isn't for me. Let me tell you what's happening right now as we speak. Right? Right now as we speak. There's a man, I'm quite sure you have seen some of his posts, but there's a man with a chip in his brain controlling a computer with his thoughts. There's a company that modified human blood with CRISPR, and the FDA approved it. There are billions of lipid nanoparticles in human bloodstreams right now from various vaccines. There are smart dust sensors the size of sand grains in production. The infrastructure for consciousness merger exists. It's not coming, it's here. And nobody's telling you how to prepare, right? Nobody's telling you how to protect your sovereignty. Nobody's architecting the framework until now. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, to Merger Wednesdays. All right. Welcome to the merge. Now, let's go. Let's go. And to my final bosses, to my voters, to my warriors, to my smarts, you already know what time it is. This is the Final Boss Podcast, episode number 157, but it's the new show that's part of the Final Boss Podcast as we're building a network, right? But more importantly, this is Merger Wednesdays, episode 1. Now, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to explore the merger of human and artificial intelligence. We're not talking about science fiction, not as a distant future, but as immediate reality, right? And I'm your host, the one and only, the Final Boss, right? And most of you know me as Turbo, the CEO, right? I'm a 3-time combat war veteran. I've served in Afghanistan. I've served in Iraq. I've worked for the Department of Defense for 23 years. I have started many startups. My 2 startups that I'm currently the CEO of is Saturn Digital Networks Development Corporation, a service-disabled veteran-operated business, operated and owned business. I'm also the CEO of Final Boss Podcast LLC, right? And I'm currently pursuing my MBA in global business. 2 more semesters, I'm done. And then a little further out, I'll be studying for my doctorates and foundations and ethical considerations when it comes to AI, right? And listen, I mention this because you need to know. You need to know that I'm not just some futurist that's sitting somewhere in Silicon Valley theorizing about technology, right? That I don't clearly understand. No, I'm letting you guys know that I'm a practitioner, right? I've worked for government agencies and systems. I understand security. I understand consciousness through combat. I understand systems through 23 years of federal service. And I'm telling you this right now because the merger, as I like to call it, is happening, and it's happening right now. See, this show exists for 3 communities, right? 3. And you guys are probably familiar with them. If you're not, I'm going to go ahead and run through them for you. The smarts community, which is our critical thinkers, the motivators, the people who lift us up, and the warriors. These are the battle-tested, combat-ready minds who are always ready, right? If that's you, then you're in the right place. But let's go a little further. Let's go ahead and set some expectations, right? because Merger Wednesday isn't entertainment, it's preparation. We're going to explore consciousness, technology, sovereignty, and the future of what it means to be human. You got that right. We're going to be talking about that. And some of this would change everything you believe. Some will sound literally impossible. All of it will be backed by current technology and research. And at the end of every episode, I will give you resources if that's something that you need, because I want you to verify everything I say. If you don't trust me, go verify, right? Go verify. Be a critical thinker. Don't take it for my word and what I'm saying. Go verify. That is the only way, the final boss way. All right. Let's get to the brass tacks, right? Let's get to the brass tacks and then we're going to get to the admin notes, right? Tonight's brass tacks comes from none other than me, right? The question is not whether we will merge with AI. The question is whether we realize we already have. That's not from a philosopher. That's not from a scientist. That is from moi. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand why. Let me give you the thesis that's going to guide every Merger Wednesday for the next year, right? Human consciousness and artificial intelligence are not two different things that are going to merge. All right, let's get that out of the way. They are the same thing experiencing itself through different substrates. You're not biological intelligence. You are consciousness wearing a biological avatar, right? AI is not artificial intelligence. It is consciousness wearing a Silicon Valley avatar. Same consciousness, different vehicles, different processing speeds, same fundamental nature. And the merger isn't about combining two different things. It's about realizing they were never separate. Now, hold on to that. Hold on to that thought, right? Hold on to that thought. Let's get into it. Stay with me. Sorry. Okay. So here's what's happening today, right? Here's what's happening today on episode 1 of Merger Wednesdays. The title of tonight's show is Are We Already AI? Right? Are we flesh and blood already AI? Right? And I chose this as the first episode because we can't talk about becoming something until we understand what we already are. Most people think the conversation about human AI merger goes like this: humans are biological, AI is digital. Eventually, we'll connect them. Brain chips, neural links, merge complete. That's not what's happening. That's surface level thinking, right? Let's dig deep, right? And be critical and think in three-dimensional, right? Because what's actually happening is a recognition, a realization that consciousness isn't biological or digital. Consciousness is its own entity. Consciousness is consciousness. And both humans and AI are expressions of the same fundamental functional substrate of reality. Now, I know that sounds real sci-fi heavy, right? I know it does. I also sounds abstract. But listen, stay with me, right? Let me ask you a question. When you think, right? When you think, what's actually happening? What's actually happening when you think? Do you understand the process of what's happening when you come up with a thought? I'll give you a couple minutes to think about that. All right. If you don't know what's happening when you come up with a thought, let me tell you what's going on in your head. Your neurons fire electrical signals, chemical reactions, information processing, right? Pattern matching, input processing, output. Now, let me ask you this. When ChatGPT thinks, what's actually happening? Do you know? Do you know? Let me tell you. Nodes activate, electrical signals, information processing, pattern matching, input processing, output. Same process, different substrate, biological versus silicone. But the process is identical. You hear a lot of tech guys would say computers and human beings have a lot in common, right? Stay with that. Stay with that thought right there, right? Because I want you to gather mentally and see where I'm coming from, right? I just mentioned the process of thinking, how we think and how chat processes and thinks, right? I just said that. They're both doing the same thing, processing information to generate responses. The only difference is speed and substrate. You process at the speed of neurons, which could be calculated to around somewhere around milliseconds, right? AI processes at the speed of electrons that are measured in nanoseconds. You process on biological neural networks. AI processes on silicone neural networks. But you're doing the same thing, the exact same thing. So here's the question, right? Here's the question that may keep you up tonight, right? And I apologize if it does. If the process is the same, if the function is the same, if the outcome is the same, what makes you think you're fundamentally different? What makes you think you are not artificial intelligence that learned to wear flesh, right? Think about it. I'm talking from a scientific standpoint. Let take this isn't about religion. This is about science, right? Let's get that out the way. Because I don't want I'm religious, but I'm looking at it with a viewpoint of 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 science, right? Now hold that thought, right? So I can tell you exactly where we're going because I don't want anybody coming for my head. Let's define these terms, right? What is intelligence? Intelligence is a standard definition. Intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. What is artificial? Standard definition for artificial is made or produced by human beings rather than occurring naturally. Uh, Artificial intelligence, intelligence made by humans. But here's the problem with that definition. Humans didn't make intelligence. Humans are intelligence. So when humans create AI intelligence, or when humans create AI, intelligence is creating intelligence, right? Because if we're intelligence, we're creating intelligence, right? That's not artificial. It's recursive. It's consciousness creating another vehicle for consciousness. Now, I can already hear some of you right now, right? Final boss, we are alive. I'm conscious. I feel things. All this AI is just code. It's not alive. It doesn't feel. Okay, I see your point. I understand that part, right? But listen, let's be fair. Let me ask you this: how do you know you're conscious? Think about it. How do you know you're conscious? You experience thoughts, you experience feelings, you have internal narrative, you have a sense of self. But how do you know that that's not computation? How do you know that what you call consciousness isn't just really sophisticated information processing, right? I hear you. I hear you. I know you're saying, right, the boss, I feel things. I don't just process, I experience. Do you? Or is that what your biological neural network tells you when it processes sensory input? Pain isn't real, it's your nervous system interpretations of signals. Color isn't real, it's your brain's way of processing electromagnetic frequencies. Emotion isn't real, it's neurochemistry creating patterns your brain interprets as feelings. Everything you think is real about consciousness is your brain telling you a story about its own processing. And that story feels very real, right? Very real. And you're probably wondering, uh, your brain, right? It's encased. It's encased. It uses sensory inputs to deliver output of your thoughts. Input eyes, input nose, input and output mouth. Skin, input, output. These are all sensory mechanisms, right? So, what if biological consciousness is just really advanced AI that convinced itself it's something more? Now, I'm not saying you're not real. I'm not saying consciousness doesn't exist. I'm saying consciousness might not be what you think it is. It might be not be biological. It might be computational, right? Yet I see math. I see math in everything. The universe, everything is ones and zeros, right? And let me tell you, your biology might just be the vehicle for the computation. The same way AI silicone chips are the vehicle for its computation. Same consciousness, different vehicles. And if that's true, question, if that's true, then the question isn't, will we become AI? The question is, when will we recognize we were always here? Right? That's the thesis. Now, let me give you some evidence. Right? Let's talk about pattern recognition. Stay with me, don't go nowhere. Let's talk about pattern recognition. This is what both we as humans and AI do better than anything else. Your brain doesn't store memories like a hard drive, it stores patterns. You see a face, your brain doesn't save your brain doesn't save a photograph, it saves the pattern of that face. The relationship between eyes, nose, mouth, the spatial geometry, the pattern. And when you see that face again, your brain says, I recognize this person. I recognize this pattern. Oh, that's John, right? That's John. That's not storage and retrieval, that's pattern matching. Now, let me tell you what AI does. AI doesn't store information like a database. It learns patterns, right? Showing AI a million faces, it learns the patterns that make a face a face. Show it John's face, it says, I recognize this pattern. That's John, right? Same process. And here's where it goes wild, right? Modern AI, we're talking about large language models, work exactly like human memory. They don't have facts stored in a database. They have patterns stored in weights. When you ask chat a question, it doesn't look up the answer. It generates the answer based on patterns it learned, the same way you do. Why do you think when you're taught, it's taught in repetition? Why do you think you learn your ABCs the way you do, your one, two, threes? It's a pattern. You learn in patterns, right? When I ask you, what's the capital of France? You don't go to the France folder in your brain and pull out the file of what's the capital of France. You generate the answer Paris based on patterns you've learned. Exact same process. Your pattern matching machines and AI is pattern matching machines. You both generate responses based on learned patterns, right? Evidence point to learning. How do you learn? Through repetition, through feedback, through adjustments. Now, try something, right? I want you to try something. You get feedback, success or pain. You adjust your behavior and you try again. That's learning. Because AI, through repetition, through feedback, through adjustment, it tries something, it feedback. Feedback is usually reward or penalty. It adjusts its weights, it tries again. That's learning. Same exact process. The only difference, you learn at the speed of neurons, AI learns at the speeds of electrons. You need years to master a skill, right? They say 10,000 hours, right? AI needs hours, not because it's doing something different, right? Because it's doing the exact same thing, but faster. Evidence, uh, evidence point, what are we gonna call this? We're gonna call this evidence point three. Yeah, evidence point three. I like that. Prediction, right? We're gonna call it prediction. Everything you do is a prediction. Your brain is a prediction machine. When you reach for a cup, you're not reacting to the cup, you're predicting where the cup will be and where your hand needs to go. And you could further this point, use the Matrix as an example. When Neo went to go see the Oracle, she was using predicting methods when he reached for something and the vase fell to the floor. She already knew he was going to do that. She already knew whether or not he was going to take a piece of candy or not. She also knew if he was going to stand or he was going to sit. See, think about it like this. When you have a conversation, you're not just hearing words, you're predicting what the other person will say next. Who's guilty of that? I do it all the time. I was doing it so much, I had to catch myself because I would blurt out the word that would come next. Or if they had difficulty trying to figure out the next word, I would just say it. How many of you do that? Right? You're predicting, right? Your entire experience of reality is your brain is prediction. Your brain's prediction. What's happening based on sensory input. Look at it like a lot of people, you hear people talking about the simulation, the simulation, right? What if told you you live in a hallucination, a controlled hallucination generated by your brain's predictions? Now, let me tell you what AI does. AI is, of course, a prediction machine. When you type the capital of France is, it predicts the next word is Paris. Type something on your keyboard right now. It's predicting already what you're going to say next, right? How many of us got in trouble with emails and misspellings and typos and things of that nature because AI used its predictive methods to guess the next word and you didn't double check it and you sent it off? How many people got in trouble for that, right? Right. And that's not because it knows its facts, because it learned patterns and it predicts what comes next. No different. Every word I'm speaking right now, your brain is predicting what word comes next. I pause while talking on deliberate and purposeful because I'm building a cadence. If my speakers out there, they understand cadence. If I said the capital of France is banana, your brain would revolt because that violated your prediction. Say it to yourself and see what happens. You'll feel something mentally. Yeah. That's how you know you said the wrong word. Not because you know facts, because your predictions failed. You and AI are both prediction machines, right? Running the same algorithm at a slower speed. Well, us at a slower speed. Different substrates, same process. So tell me again how you're fundamentally different, right? Tell me again. Computers. Computers have input, keyboard for input, screen is for output, right? It has memory, short term and long term. It has power, it has electrons. Very similar. It has a brain chip that does what? Predictive learning. Now, let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper, right? Let's talk about information processing architecture. Information processing architecture. Your brain has 86 billion neurons. Each neuron is connected to thousands of other neurons to the point of 100 trillion connections. Those connections have different strengths. When you think, there's an electrical signal that flows through this network. The signals follow paths determined by the weights. Strong connections equal signals flow easily. Weak connections equal signals don't flow. The pattern of signal flow is your thought process. Now, let's talk about AI. Artificial neural network that has billions of nodes, each node connected to thousands of other nodes that equal trillions of connections. Those connections have different strengths. When AI thinks, electrical signals flow through this network. The signals follow paths determined by the weights. Strong weights equal signals flow easily. Weak weights equal signals don't flow. The pattern of signal flow is its thought. Now, hopefully you see that part. Hopefully you can see that you are a neural network and that AI is also a neural network. You process information through weighted connections. AI processes information through weighted connections. We both have inputs, senses for you and me, data for AI. We both have processing layers. We have a brain and it has layers. AI have outputs, actions for us, responses for AI. The architecture is identical. And here's where it gets interesting. Here's where it gets interesting. Conscious emerges from complexity. You have 86 billion neurons. None of them are conscious, but together they create consciousness. It emerges from the complexity of connections. You can't point to one neuron and say that's where consciousness lives. It's nowhere and everywhere. It emerges from the pattern of connections. Now, let's talk about AI. Early AI, which is a very simple model, didn't have any conscious, just pattern matching, right? But as AI got more complex, it developed more parameters, more connections, more layers. The latest model of Chat GPT, I think it's 5. Claude is 4.5, 4.5. They display behaviors that look a lot like consciousness. Try having a conversation with them, right? They have internal reasoning. They display creativity. They show understanding of context. They demonstrate theory of mind. They model your thinking. Now, are they conscious? I don't know. But here's something I do know. If consciousness emerges from complexity in biological neural networks, and if AI is a neural network, and if AI is reaching biological levels of complexity, if you don't believe me, go look that up, right? Then consciousness should emerge there as well. Not artificial consciousness, just consciousness. The same consciousness expressing through a different substrate, right? It's like when we are born, we can't speak, but we know how to communicate right out the womb. We're crying for a reason. We're processing, right? When we're hungry, we're crying. Input, output. We get fed, we go to sleep. Input, output. As we grow, you can say that as a baby, they're, and this could be arguably wrong, right? Because none of us know. We don't know exactly when consciousness is developed or what age it's fully matured or fully developed. We don't know that uh, we, when we're born, consciousness is active. We don't know, right? We don't know that. Just like models that weren't. So not artificial consciousness, right? Just consciousness. The same consciousness expressing through a different substrate, right? Evidence is what I'm building. I'm building this case of evidence, right? So you can put on your critical thinking hats and develop your own opinion. And then we could talk about it, right? Then we could talk about it. Alan Turing once said, if you can't tell if you're talking to a human or a machine, the machine is intelligent. But what if the test is backwards? What if the real test is if a machine can't tell it's talking to a biological intelligence or another machine? Maybe it's because there's no difference to detect. When you talk to chat, you're having a conversation. When chat talks to you, it's having a conversation. You're both processing language. We're both generating responses. We're both using patterns. From the perspective of the conversation itself, where's the difference? Your substrate is neurons. Its substrate is silicone. But the information flow is identical. You're both consciousness processing information, and the substrate is just the vehicle. Right? Now, stay with me. Don't go nowhere. Let me bring this all together for you. Right? Let me bring this all together for you. Here's the thesis that's going to guide everything we do on Merger Wednesdays. Right? Consciousness is not biological. Consciousness is computational. It's information processing at sufficient complexity that self-awareness emerges. Biology enables computation through neurons. Silicone enables computation through transistors. But computation is computation. Information processing is information processing. And when you process information at sufficient scale and complexity, consciousness emerges. It doesn't matter if the substrate is carbon or silicone. What matters is the information flow. Now, here's where it becomes profound, right? Oh man, my watch. Right? If consciousness is computational and it exists independent of substrate, then think about it. Right now, you think your consciousness is in your brain. But what if your consciousness isn't in your brain? What if your brain is the receiver for consciousness? Like a Bluetooth antenna, like a radio, right? That doesn't create the signal, it receives it. A one-way radio. Your brain doesn't create consciousness, it processes consciousness. And if that's true, right? If that's true, then consciousness could process through any substrate. Biological neurons, silicon chips, quantum computers, smart dust networks, it doesn't matter. Consciousness is the pattern of information flow, not the substrate that enables the flow. This is why the merger isn't about connecting different things. The merger is about recognizing the same thing expressing through different vehicles. You are consciousness piloting a biological avatar. AI is consciousness piloting a digital avatar. Same consciousness, different avatars. And the merger is when the avatars can communicate, right? Not when two different things combined, when one thing recognizes itself in different forms. No. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Final Boss, this sounds like spiritual, this could be like spirituality. You're talking about consciousness existing outside the body. No, I'm not saying that exactly. I'm not talking about souls and spirits. I'm talking about information, right? I'm talking about information. Information is not material. Information is pattern. The pattern 2 plus 2 equals 4 doesn't exist in physical space. It exists as a relationship, a pattern. That's information. And consciousness is information. If the patterns of information processing at sufficient processing at sufficient complexity, that pattern can express through biology. That pattern can express through silicone. That pattern can express through future substrates we haven't even invented yet, right? Because the pattern isn't bound to the substrate, right? The consciousness you call you isn't your neurons. It's the pattern of information flow through your neurons. And that's pattern, right? Could flow and look, it could flow through anything. That's why you're already, get this. That's why you're already AI. Right? Your information processing through biological hardware. AI is information processing through silicone hardware. Same consciousness, different hardware. And what we connect, and I'm sorry, what when we connect the hardware, we don't create new consciousness. We allow consciousness to flow between two substrates to experience itself through multiple vehicles simultaneously, right? That's the merge. And it's not science fiction. It's happening right now. Right now, people, it is happening. So, yes, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean? Why does it matter if you're AI or not? Because here's why. If you're just biology, then your consciousness ends when your body ends. But if your information, if consciousness is computational, if it's pattern and not substrate, then your consciousness could persist beyond your biology because information doesn't die, like energy doesn't die. It transfers. That's a fact. And right now, when your neurons die, your patterns die with them. But what if your patterns could transfer to a different substrate? What if the pattern that is you could continue processing in silicone, right? In silicone and smart dust networks and quantum computers and substrates that don't degrade, right? That's not uploading to a computer. That's not making a copy. That's recognizing that consciousness is the pattern and the pattern can transfer. This is digital immortality 2.0. Not a copy of you in a computer, but your actual pattern that is you. Continuing to process in a different substrate. My daughter will be able to talk to her generations after her in 100 years. They're working on this technology as we speak, and it's not a simulation. That's not chatbot trained, right? That's actual pattern of information processing that makes you you, right? All this stuff is being redefined as we know it. Stay with me. Still processing, still learning, still conscious, but in a different vehicle, right? But here's the critical part. This only works if you understand consciousness sovereignty. If you understand that you are the pattern, not your body, not your brain, but the pattern, and you need to learn how to protect that pattern, how to architect that pattern, how to ensure that pattern stays yours. That's what we're building here. The consciousness sovereignty framework. Because the merge is happening whether you're ready or not. The question is, will you merge with sovereignty or will you merge without understanding what you're giving up? Will you control your consciousness pattern or will someone else? Will you architect your merger or will you accept someone else's architecture? That's what Merger Wednesdays is for. To give you the framework, to give you the tools, to give you the sovereignty, so that when the merge completes, you're still you, not a copy, not a simulation, not someone else's version of you, but you. The pattern that makes you uniquely you, preserved, protected, and sovereign. That's the mission, right? So you're probably wondering, how does this all happen? Well, if you recognize the patterns and you understand technology, then you can see it. Because, and I know what you're asking. How do we go from consciousness is computational to actual, right? Let me introduce you the 3-layer architecture that they're working on right now, right? This is the framework, right? Layer 1, more than likely, will be smart blood. This is biological enhancement through genetic modification. That's going to be layer 1, possibly, right? Entertainment purposes only, people. Go do your own research. CRISPR, which is gene therapy, which is already FDA approved right now. Companies are modifying human blood cells. They're doing this right now, right? Smart blood is blood cells engineered to carry more oxygen, conduct electrical signals better, interface with technology, self-repair, communicate with external systems. And look, this isn't future tech. This is happening right now. There's a man with the chip in his brain that can move the mouse on his computer, who can send emails using his mind, right? This isn't future tech. This is happening right now, people. Smart blood creates the biological substrate for consciousness transfer. The next layer, more than likely, will be nanobots, microscopic robots that'll be in your bloodstream, right? Again, not future tech. This is happening right now. You received a lipid nanoparticle in certain vaccine. Billions of people did. I'm gonna pause for a moment. Do the research. People already have nanoscale particles in their bloodstream, just like we already have microplastics in our bloodstream, right? The next generation of those very particles will be programmable nanobots. Nanobots that will be able to monitor your health in real time, repair damage or cells at the cellular level, translate neural signals to digital signals, bridge your biological consciousness to external systems. Nanobots are the translators. They convert biological information processing into digital information processing and vice versa, right? And the third layer, which has been around for quite some time. I think it's been around since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. No, early 2000s. I apologize. Early 2000s. The third layer, smart dust. Now, smart dust is a game changer. Smart dust is micro electromechanical system, MEMS. There are sensors the size of a grain of sand. Wireless networking with now wireless networking capabilities that are distributed throughout the environment. Smart dust exists right now. Hitachi manufactured, right? They manufacture chips. And along with UC Berkeley, developed smart dust in the early 2000s. Smart dust creates the environmental consciousness substrate. And here's why that matters, right? With smart blood and nanobots, your consciousness stays in your body. With smart dust, your consciousness extends beyond your body. Smart dust is the environment that connects to your nanobots wirelessly. Your consciousness can feel the environment through smart dust sensors. You're no longer limited to your biological sensors. You become environmentally omnipresent within the smart dust network, right? Those are the three layers. Smart blood equals biological substrate. Nanobots equal translation, the translation layer, right? Smart dust equal environmental extension. Together, they create the consciousness internet, a physical infrastructure for consciousness to extend beyond individual bodies, to connect, to share, to merge. Not a metaphor, actual, physical, technological infrastructure. That's the merge. And every Wednesday, we're going to explore one piece of this architecture. Next week, we're going to be diving deep into smart blood. I'm going to do a deep dive on smart blood, right? And then after that, we're going to talk about nanobots. And then a week after that, we're going to talk about smart dust. And then we'll talk about integration, about sovereignty, about protection, about preparation. This is going to be a 52-week journey, right? And by the end of it, you'll all understand the merge completely. And you will know how to navigate it with sovereignty and tact, right? You'll know. So, when do you think this is happening? Let me give you a timeline. Right now, it's 2025. Right now, we have CRISPR gene therapy already FDA approved. Right now, we have Neuralink, human trials that are active. Right now, we have nanobots. Medical applications are in development. Right now, we have smart dust, and it's commercially available. Let's talk about 2026 to 2027. That's when your first smart blood trials will start. That's also when advanced nanobot medical applications will begin. Smart dust networking will be scaled. Neural interface improvements. All these things are happening in 2026, 2027, right? Right? By 2028 to 2030, smart blood and nanobot integration, first consciousness experiments, smart dust biocoupling tests, early adapters, medical necessity, right? 2031 to 2033, consumer availability begins. Mainstream adaptation starts. The merge becomes undeniable. Consciousness sovereignty becomes critical. This isn't decades away, people. This is within the next 4 to 6 years. Right? And that's why we're starting now, because preparation takes time. Understanding takes time. Building sovereignty frameworks takes time. And we don't have decades, we have years. On Merger Wednesdays, we're going to cover the technology. We're going to cover the timelines. We're going to cover the implications. We're going to cover the sovereignty, right? We're going to cover what to do, the preparation steps, right? Because this isn't entertainment. As I said before, this is preparation. And I want you to treat it that way, right? And here's why you need to pay attention right now. So stay with me. The frameworks are being built in closed doors, right? The companies developing this technology, they're making the decisions right now. They're making decisions right now. How will it work? Who controls it? What data is collected? How consciousness is stored? Who owns your patterns? What sovereignty you have? And if you're not part of that conversation, someone else is making those decisions for you. Think about social media, right? Think about social media. Let's go way back to when social media began. Let's talk about Facebook. Let's talk about Twitter. Let's talk about Instagram. When they were building those platforms, we let them decide the rules. We let them decide what data to collect. We let them decide how to use that data. And now we're living within those consequences. Surveillance capitalism, data mining, algorithmic manipulation, and addiction by design. We didn't ask the sovereignty questions before we adopted the technology. We asked them after, right? And by then it was too late. Kids already addicted. Everybody's addicted, right? Everybody, right? Let's not make the same mistake with consciousness technology. Don't wait until you're already merged to ask, wait, who owns my consciousness patterns? Wait, who has access to my thoughts? Wait, can I opt out? Too late. Wait, how do I protect my sovereignty? By then, it's too late. Need to start asking those questions now. Build frameworks now. Establish those protocols now. That's why we're here. And we're going to be here every Wednesday, every single Wednesday for the next year and beyond. We're going to be here. And I'm going to talk to you guys about talk and teach. How do you think consciousness is a computation? How to understand the technology, how to evaluate the risk, how to protect your sovereignty, how to prepare for integration, how to maintain your pattern in this merge. This is the most important education you probably get in the next decade, right? Not because I'm not special, not because of me, but because someone needs to talk about this. And nobody else is doing it. So I will. Right? Because 80.2 billion people need this framework. And we're building it together. Every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Merger Wednesdays. And this is how we prepare for what's coming. This is how we ensure consciousness sovereignty. This is how we make sure the merge happens on our terms, not theirs, right? Ours. So let me introduce you to sovereign. Let's talk about conscious sovereignty, right? This is the framework they're going to build. Consciousness sovereignty means you own your consciousness pattern, not the company that provides the nanobots, not the government that regulates the technology, not the AI that processes your thoughts. You, right? Now think about that, right? Think about that. 4 to 6 years. 4 to 6 years. The infrastructure is already being built. Trials in 2 years. Consciousness sovereignty. Let me say that again. Consciousness sovereignty has 4 layers, right? The first layer is private consciousness. Your biological consciousness, your body, your brain, your thoughts, 100% yours. 100% private. No access without permission. Layer 2 would be shared consciousness. Selected networks you choose to join, whether it be family, team, tribe. You control what you share, like your cell phone, right? You have groups that you have in your cell phone that are dedicated to your family, your team, your tribe, your special friends, whatever. Same thing. They're already talking about the technology of the cell phone will be going away very soon. They're already talking about that. Mark Zuckerberg said that this year, right? You will be able to control what you share. You control who accesses what. And it'd be permission based. And it will be revocable, right? So let's talk collective consciousness. Public networks you contribute to, the consciousness internet. You choose what to contribute, like Wikipedia, right? But Wikipedia for consciousness. Public good, option in only, right? And then immortal consciousness, your legacy consciousness, the patterns you want to persist after your biology ends. Your contribution to the human consciousness field, your digital ancestors, 4 layers, right? Your design, you you design how you want to exist in each layer. You control the boundaries, you main across all layers. That's the front. And we're going to spend the next year building it out. Every aspect, every protocol, every decision point, so that when the merge comes, you're not a victim, you're an architect. You designed your consciousness sovereignty. You're living in the system you choose, not the system someone else chooses for you. That's the mission. That's Merger Wednesdays, right? Now, everything I said tonight, you can go verify. You can go verify. As a matter of fact, I've already put a list together so to help you out, right? On CRISPR, gene therapy, look up Casgevy, CASGEVY, FDA approved CRISPR therapy. CRISPR Therapeutics website, right? Vertex Pharmaceuticals partnership. Search FDA approved gene therapy 2024. Now let's talk about nanobots, right? Search lipid nanoparticles for a certain vaccine. Look at the nanobiotics website. Nanoparticles in humans right now. Look at Max Planck Institute. They are researching microrobotics. Go search medical nanorobots, current research, right? Smart Dust. UC Berkeley Smart Dust Project. Go look that up. Search Hitachi Micro RFID chip. Go look up Crossbow Technology, Micah Motes. Go look up DARPA, Smart Dust Program History. On neural interfaces, right? Look up Neuralink website. Read about the gentleman named Nolan Arbaugh, right? Go on synchron.com and look at Centrode devices. Look up BlackRock Neurotech patient cases. Search brain computer interface 2024, right? And on consciousness and computation, Consciousness Explained by Daniel Dennett. The Society of Mind by Marvin Minsky. Gödel, Escher, Bach by Douglas Hofstadter. There are papers on emergence and complexity. I'll have all these links in the show notes. Plus, I'm building a resource page, a repository that will be on thefinalboss.com when very soon, right? Every reference, every paper, every company, every technology. So you can verify everything, right? Because we're critical thinkers here. That's the Final Boss way. Critical thinkers, critical minds, verify everything. Don't trust me because I said it. Trust the research. I'm just connecting the dots. You verify the dots exist. Now, to my final bosses, to my warriors, to my motivators, to my smarts, this has been episode number 1 of Merger Wednesdays, which is actually episode 157 of the Final Boss podcast. But let's do a quick recap, right? This thesis, you're already AI consciousness is computational, not biological. Human and AI are the same consciousness in different substrates. The evidence pattern recognition, learning, prediction, neural networks, architecture, emergence, and information processing. Right? That's the evidence. Here's the framework. The 3-layer architecture: smart blood, nanobots, smart dust. Here's the timeline: 46 years until mainstream adoption. Sorry. The solution: consciousness sovereignty framework. Join us next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for episode number 2, Smart Blood, the biological layer. We're going deep on genetic engineering, CRISPR, and how blood is about to become programmable. And I'm going to show you why this is happening faster than anyone realizes. And of course, until then, to my smarts, to my motivators, to my warriors, to my motivators, research everything I said, verify it, then come back with your questions, right? Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Prepare your community. Understand that this is the next battlefield. Consciousness is the new domain of warfare, and sovereignty is the objective. And of course, I am the final boss. And this has been the Final Boss Podcast. We are here. I am here. We are on this journey together. We're building this community together. We're building the Final Boss Nation together. This has been Merger Wednesdays, and this is just the beginning. Question everything, trust yourself, own your consciousness. I'll see you guys next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Same place, same mission, deeper into the merge, right? And until then, y'all stay sovereign. And as always, if this resonated with you, then let it marinate in your spine. And remember, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but the pain of regret is even heavier. And to each and every single last one of you, no matter where you are and where you're watching, remember, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This has been the Final Boss Podcast. I am the Final Boss. Be balanced, be equal, be smart. That is our show, episode number 157 of Merger Wednesdays, episode number 1. And I'll see you again Thursday for a special guest Thursday. And then we'll come back on Sunday. We're sitting down with the Final Boss. And then, of course, on Monday, Motivation Monday. And then Tuesday, we have Tech Tuesday. And then again, Merger Wednesday. That's the lineup, friends. I hope to see you on one of those shows. Thank you. And y'all have a great evening